Welcome to The Growth Shift, the podcast where we unlock the psychological and strategic blueprints of predictable growth. If you've built a successful business, you know the truth. Your expertise is high value, but your time is finite. The question is, how do you sustain that success without sacrificing your most valuable asset? We believe that the next level of success requires a strategic pivot, a fundamental shift that moves beyond the old ways. In every episode, we dive into the critical turning points of industry leaders and uncover how they're leveraging AI not as a shortcut, but as the strategic force for their next growth shift. Today, we dive in with a leader who is defining the future of their industry. This episode is brought to you by Valentix. At Valentix, we help coaches and consultants who are struggling with generating consistent, high-quality leads, automating their processes, and scaling their operations without simply adding more hours or headcount. Most of the time, our clients come to us frustrated because they're bogged down in manual tasks and feel like they're missing out on the power of modern technology. But with the right strategy and AI-powered solutions, they're able to streamline their workflows, attract better opportunities, and achieve sustainable growth. If that sounds like you or someone you know, learn more at valentix.io. Now let's dive into today's episode. Today on The Growth Shift, we're joined by Mike Harbour, the visionary founder of Harbour Resources. Mike's journey is a powerful narrative of entrepreneurial courage, having made the leap from corporate America in his mid-30s to build a successful firm dedicated to driving behavior change within companies. With nearly 2 decades of experience, Mike now empowers leaders by focusing on the thinking and behaviors necessary to achieve real results, consistently investing in personal growth and mentorship to stay ahead of the curve. His insights into scaling a business, managing control, and leveraging AI for efficiency will be a valuable resource for any leader seeking to transform their organization. Mike, welcome to The Growth Shift.
Hey, David. Thanks for inviting me, man. Really excited to be here with you and share with your audience out there, man.
Mike, it's great to have you on the show. I've been looking forward to our conversation. You know, your career path, starting in corporate America and making the leap to entrepreneurship in your mid-30s, it's a classic story of seeking more fulfillment or, maybe more for yourself in the long run. Could you share what foundational experiences or principles from your time in the healthcare space ultimately led you to realize you needed to jump out and start out on your own, even maybe without a detailed plan of how to do so?
Yeah, there was no plan, man. I'm not a planner really in that regard. I do plan a lot, but I think really foundationally, man, I grew up in a home where my dad was self-employed. My grandmother worked with him, and so I just kind of watched them kind of build their own business, build their own thing, right? And I didn't really want to work for someone else for my whole life, even though I was 36 before I kind of jumped out on my own. I joined the Army, out of college. I went to high school and then went to college and played baseball for a few years and then joined the Army. So when I came out of the Army, I was kind of looking, I wanted to be a hospital CEO, I thought, David. I thought that'd be a cool job. My experiences in healthcare operations, I thought I wanted to do that, but I actually went to work for a company that really kind of started pushing me toward sales. I was recruiting. I was a headhunter. And so I went to them to help me find a job in healthcare operations when I got back home from the Army. And they ended up hiring me. And so I started selling people, right? I was going to hospitals and calling on them and helping them recruit new talent, new leadership talent for their organizations. And so that's where I really learned some sales skills in that job and built relationships literally all over the U.S. And I did that for a number of years. I went back into healthcare operations for a few years, didn't really like the company I was working for. I'm 36 years old. I've got a young son, a very young daughter at the time. They were 5 and 1. And I'm thinking, man, I don't have any money, but I know if I don't make the jump now, I'm not going to ever be able to do it. And so I just took that experience of watching my family kind of be entrepreneurial, learning those sales skills, and in using the relationships I'd built over years in that headhunting business that I worked for to kind of jump out and just kind of launch my own thing. Really, like I said, no money, no plan, just an opportunity or a desire to kind of work for myself.
Amazing. Now, Mike, the story you shared there, it seems like perhaps there were some conflicting forces with your experience that I want to draw some insights out. I want some insights from you here. I mean, what I mean by conflicting is that, out of high school, you went to join the military. In the military, you learn teamwork. You learn following the rules, let's say. perhaps sacrificing yourself and what you might want now for the greater good and the greater purpose, right? And then moving into college, playing baseball, again, teamwork, moving with the team, doing things perhaps for the sake of others, not necessarily for yourself. And where I'm going here is that it doesn't seem to foster an entrepreneurial mindset, right? Thinking outside of the box, doing things for your own, going against the grain. But here you are with that entrepreneurial, story in your family. So it seems like, again, there are two conflicting things pressing against each other. What you saw in your family on the entrepreneurial journey and what you learned through your experience in the military and college on teams, etc. Did you find that there was any conflicting thoughts or feelings in your mind when you decided that, hey, although I don't have much money, I've got, 2 children right now, but I know that this is what I need to do. Did you have any reservations about making that leap?
Oh, absolutely, man. You got, mouths to feed, right? Kids to take care of. But I've always been one of those guys. I'm pretty independent. I grew up in a broken home, parents divorced, lots of dysfunction there. So I kind of raised myself as a kid, as a young man, as a teenager. So I grew up independent. Yes, I was on a lot of teams, football, baseball, the military, lots of teams. But I've also, in that, I always say I'm allergic to the status quo. So I always wanted to kind of rise above everybody else, partly because of some of that was driven by I didn't feel good enough. So I wanted to be better than anybody else, right? And prove that I was. As I got more mature and learned more about leadership, I really learned that I'm not better than anybody else. I just got a drive that some people don't want. And my job as a leader is to pull out the best in others. And so I love being on teams. I love being part of teams. I love working together with others, but I also like being in charge, David. So that's the conflict sometimes is I like being in charge, but I've realized I've got to be able to work with teams and pull the right people together to be able to move the ball forward in a direction we're trying to go.
So is that realization of, what it is you ultimately wanted and how you felt, and, like a lot of entrepreneurs, you went by instinct, by feeling, right? Yeah. By, what it is you really felt you needed and wanted to do. So you made that leap into entrepreneurship without a clear path forwards. Let's say you had built up the skills and the relationships to perhaps give you a foundation, but what happened next? You made the leap into entrepreneurship. How did that actually unfold for you?
I guess when I initially started my business, so I do something completely different today than I did when I started in 2006. I started my own business as a headhunting firm, recruiting leaders for hospitals, right? Hospital need a new CFO. Hospital needed a new chief nurse. Hospital needs a new director of pharmacy, whatever. I go out and find those people, recruit them from other organizations, bring them in. And I started that business because I knew how to do it. It's the skill set I had. It wasn't something I was really in love with because it's very transactional. So after about 5 years, I started transitioning to training and development and coaching because that's really what I'm passionate about, David. I love bringing out the best in other people. That's my personal mantra. It's an old Jack Welch quote, but he said, when you were made a leader, you weren't given a crown. You were given the responsibility to bring out the best in others. And that's really what gets me up in the morning. I want to bring out the best in myself and bring out the best in others. And so after about 5 years of doing nothing but headhunting, I started moving my business slowly toward training, development, leadership advisory services, which is what we do. That's all we do now exclusively. We don't do any search or placement work anymore. But when I started I had zero plan, right? I didn't really know anything about building a business plan, no strategy. I just had drive and hard work and make it happen type of attitude, right? I'm either going to fail or I'm gonna make something work and I'm gonna figure it out. And so along that journey, man, lots of failure, lots of bumps, being broke, making money, trying to riding the roller coaster, so to speak, before you really figure out some systems to put into place. And then putting a team around me, and we can talk more about that as we go forward, but putting a team of advisors around me to help me overcome my own limits, my own limiting beliefs, build some skill sets that I didn't have. And I still do that. I still pay for, coaching and mentoring every single day.
So, Mike, 5 years into your own business, right? There's definitely some traction. You had learned, you were definitely doing well for yourself by that point. Or, you mentioned the roller coaster, but doing well enough. 5 years into a business, a lot of entrepreneurs and business leaders might feel like it's too late to make a change and go in a different direction, right? But you identified something there in yourself and you decided that I'm going in the wrong direction. I need to make a change. Maybe there was a growth shift moment there for you, but was there anything, towards the end of that first 5 years that, helped you identify the shift that you needed to make, or, any occurrence that really just showed you that things need to be done differently now?
Yeah, the recruiting, man, and placing people in business is very transactional. And I don't like just doing transaction that doesn't truly add value at a deep level. And so if a hospital needs a new CFO, they want to work with me. But if they don't need a CFO, then they don't care to talk with you, right? And that bothered me because it lacks relationship. There's no depth in that. And so I just didn't really enjoy it, even though I was making great money, David. If you're good at recruiting, you can make a lot of money, and a lot of money quick. I mean, I could make as much money in 90 days as some people make in a whole year doing recruiting. And I like the money, but I didn't love the money, right? What I really love is building relationships with people, helping them grow at a deep level, and build cultures that impact many lives versus one life, which is the transactional aspect of recruiting, right? And so it really just came from a place of not really doing what got it. The money didn't get me up in the morning, right? And it still doesn't. I mean, I love money, don't get me wrong. I like to make money. Everybody needs it, right? But it's not what gets me up in the morning. What gets me up is making an impact on people's lives so they can make an impact on other people's lives in a positive way. And that's really where I started to make that shift, is just I wanted to have a deeper impact within an organization versus one transaction. Not really a smart thing to do, David. I was making great money recruiting, and I went from making great money to going broke a couple of times trying to make that transition work. Because in recruiting, I could make $100,000 in 90 days just by placing somebody. And the business I'm in now is much different than that. But again, it took me a while to figure out how to build this kind of business versus doing the recruiting business. But it's what I just get up with more fire in my belly every morning now than I did back then.
No, I love that, right? Because, I think this is a journey that many entrepreneurs need to go through, right? In terms of recognizing that, hey, money is great, but without purpose and, without fulfillment behind it, why are you actually doing it at the end of the day? You can achieve the lifestyle, and the lifestyle can be great, but it's not sustainable if you don't actually enjoy what's necessary to maintain it, right? So you made that shift. Now, Harbour Resources helps companies drive behavior change, right? Focusing on thinking about leadership, not just the skills. Can you explain your core methodology, who are your primary clients, and how is it that you work with them to do this?
Yeah, so the primary audience for me is still healthcare. I mean, I do work outside of healthcare as well. Leadership is leadership. We're leading people, right? So it doesn't matter what industry it is. We can teach and train people to be better leaders. But my primary, point of contact is going to be a hospital CEO that we're trying to help, that's trying to drive results in the organization, provide better patient care, have a better bottom line, keep the right people, all those types of things. And really it comes from a philosophy, David, of not really being led well as a growing up. And so I was always seeking out leadership. I grew up in a very violent, dysfunctional, abusive home, broken home, parents divorced, parents not divorced. I mean, just kind of craziness, right? Not much oversight in my home. And, I wanted more of that. I wanted more leadership. And I believe most people want to be led well. Luckily, I had a grandmother who was fantastic. I had some coaches that were fantastic, and fantastic leaders while I was in the Army. And then over time, I've just built, a circle of mentors around me that I can learn from. But the real philosophy is most people want to be led well, but necessarily it may not have been modeled well for them. And so I just I started a personal growth journey when I was 23 years old while I was in the Army. Reading my first book was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. My second book was Developing the Leader Within You, which is by John Maxwell. John has been a mentor of mine for years and years. And it was just really, I wanted to be a better leader. I always gravitated toward leadership roles, Dave. You can't tell, I'm loud, I'm aggressive, I'm assertive. You get promoted into leadership roles pretty easily that way because you can get a lot done, but you're not necessarily leading well. And I wanted to also lead well. And I had a mentor one time while I was in the Army said, Mike, you got a lot of potential, but we got to teach you how to lead. We got to teach you how to harness that. And that's where I read literally my first book. He gave me my first book, which was that 7 Habits book. It started me on a journey of developing self, right? I don't think you can be a good leader until you learn to develop self. You got to do a lot of self-development. And I needed a lot of it because I didn't have that modeling growing up. And so now my philosophy is just to give back to those that are in leadership positions but really haven't learned to lead well, to help them learn the skills, the values, the characteristics and competencies they need to lead well within their own teams, their organizations, so they can be happier at the end of the day, believe it or not.
Yeah, it almost seems like a funny byproduct of natural leaders who want to help others and, as you said, are assertive, are loud, want to put yourself out there. One of the natural byproducts is that you get noticed and you get promoted perhaps, but you don't have the fundamental or foundational skills to actually lead in the right way. And of course, with healthcare in consideration, leadership is imperative, right? I mean, just from the top down, you're looking at the whole organization, hospital system, saving lives, taking care of people, right? So you need to be able to lead with empathy, with care, and actually have people buy into a greater vision for sake of, everyone beyond themselves, let's say, right? So
Amen.
Can you share any specific stories perhaps about, how it is that you actually came in with a healthcare organization and worked with one of their leaders and, the result that came?
Yeah, man, I've been really fortunate, David. I've worked with tens of thousands of people, hundreds of leaders, thousands of leaders coached and been, in training. But I've got some really, really close relationships with lots of leaders, right? I've got one CEO that I work with. I've been literally working with him since 2007. So 18 years I started working with him, initially recruiting him to a job. Because at that time I was still in the recruiting business, right? And I recruited him for a CEO job I was working on, and we became fast friends. And literally, he's had a few different CEO jobs since 2007, and I've worked with him to build cultures of excellence, values-based leadership over the years. That's a success, right? I mean, literally for 18 years we've worked together. When he goes in and he's trying to transform cultures of high performance, I'm a team member of his. I don't work for him per se. I'm an advisor with him, right? He hires me to come in and work with his teams. I've got other organizations where I've helped create leadership cultures where I go in, they've got extremely high turnover issues. I had one organization a few years ago. They basically had, in a couple of their departments, 100% turnover. And just by teaching the leader how to interview correctly, how to select, how to coach them, how to coach the new employees and onboard them effectively, what I call activation, how to activate them effectively, reducing their turnover by 60% just within a few months, right? And I've got another organization I'm working with right now. We've taken their turnover from 33% a year ago down to about 14% now, right? This is saving companies millions of dollars on their bottom line because turnover is extremely costly and expensive to replace somebody. At minimum, it's going to cost one time whatever the employee's salary was. And so if that's a $100,000 salary, it's going to cost them one times that at least. That's the minimum. It's usually 1.5, 2 times that on average to find a replacement and replace the productivity and those types of things. So those are just a few success stories that we have just by helping people think differently about leadership. I always say, man, I can teach you the skills of leadership, but until you learn to think differently, it's between your ears. 90% of communication, teamwork, all those things is between your ears first, and we got to work on that.
That's incredible, right? Especially when it comes to chopping retention rates or, let's say retention loss rates in half, because I mean, as you said, it's very expensive, to go out and recruit and hire people. But if you can just reduce that immediately, I mean, the impact is profound, right? Because I think most employees these days, they don't, quit in a loud way, and probably often it's not even identified why people are truly leaving, because I think when people leave, they aren't always honest about it, right? But people are leaving because they don't feel valued. They don't feel like, they belong. They don't feel like they're contributing perhaps in the right way. So if you can lead and provide value and, direction for people within and, that sense of belonging, it makes a lot of sense why they'd want to stay around, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, the reality is I'm a Gen Xer. The reality is most of us Gen Xers, we found value in our paycheck, right? If I work for David and he pays me every other Friday, he values me, right? I did a good job. I didn't get fired. But the reality is today, man, people find value not just in the paycheck. They want to get paid, but pay's not the number one reason they make a decision to stay with the company. They want to feel valued, as you said, David. They want to be able to trust your leadership and feel like you've got their best interest in mind, and you don't just see them as a number producing a widget at the end of the day. And look, I've I do most of my work in healthcare, and leaders in healthcare are some of the, not, look, I'm throwing a broad brush here, but they're some of the most uncaring leaders we have. It's crazy. I mean, we work in a caring environment, but they don't necessarily care for the people they lead, and it impacts patient safety, number one, the patient satisfaction rates, but all of those other things. And so I'm on a mission to create more caring, more developed, more character and values-based driven leaders.
Mike, you focus on relationships, on care, on everything that you were just mentioning. And, this is something that's been important to you all the way along. I want to chat a little bit about, just the current state of the markets when it comes to coaches and consultants who also take a similar approach, right? Of leading with relationships and building trust. It's a pretty crazy world right now. You experienced, making the shift from early on in business, from the recruitment model into the coaching model that you're in now. And perhaps some of these challenges that other coaches are facing right now aren't as impactful to you as they are for them, but you must have some great insights here, right? So if we're looking at one of the biggest challenges, and this is something you went through, as all entrepreneurs do, making that shift, client acquisition, right? Bringing the first people in, building some strong relationships, getting great results. But it's not always scalable, right? Yeah. To just focus on and trust in relationships and client referrals. There's a lot of noise out there right now. It's increasingly difficult to build trust so you can get in the door to build those relationships necessary, right? There's a lot of noise that's out there. So when we look at, just the current state of the coaching and consulting world, what is it that you're observing with the forces that are making it difficult for coaches and consultants to actually build quality relationships that lead to business growth and client acquisition?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big things, everybody's a coach nowadays, right? There's a lot of coaches in the marketplace. There's a lot of experts in the marketplace. Anybody can use AI today to be an expert, and write something about being an expert coach. Maybe they've never had the experience. There's a lot of leaders that, they leave the corporate world and maybe they weren't a good leader, but now they're out here trying to coach people to be good leaders because they're using their corporate experience to drive things. So there's some of that, right? I mean, there's a watering down of the coaching space a little bit. There's also, spam messaging is just crazy, right? I mean, I get spammed every single day on LinkedIn is my primary social media avenue. And, used to LinkedIn was a great place to be because it kept you away from a lot of the crap that's on the internet. But even LinkedIn has become a place where people are inundated with just, bogus spam type messages and I can help you and all of these kind of things. So you're fighting against that too, right? People have gotten just overwhelmed with the constant messaging that happens. And so even though you may be a great coach, a great advisor, whatever it is, your message may never get seen through those avenues, not because of anything you're doing wrong, but because the marketplace has just overwhelmed people with all this messaging that's happening. So getting in front of people, your target market, has become harder than it's ever been. I used to get business off of LinkedIn, man. It's harder to do that today than ever. So I think, those are a couple things. And then just being able to differentiate yourself from others, right? I mean, luckily for me, 100% of my business is either referral or repeat business. I mean, I get all of my business either through a referral from somebody I'm doing business with, or they're repeat clients that just want to keep doing what we do. Like the CEO I talked about a minute ago that I've worked with for 18 years now. I mean, he's been a consistent, client of mine for a number of years. I'm lucky in that regard, but we're always still trying to grow, our business and trying to get creative and add value to the marketplace. I mean, it's really my focus with our messaging is we're just adding value. How can I continue to add value to the marketplace? We're very non-salesy, even though I'm a sales guy, I've got sales experience. Our goal is not to sell you, but to serve you. And add a ton of value to you. If you buy from us, great. If you don't, man, it just wasn't the right relationship. We'll go find another one. It's kind of the way we look at it here.
Some lessons taken from John Maxwell, I can tell. Absolutely. I've read a few of his books as well. So, I mean, Mike, it's a testament to the relationships that you build that your clients are all coming back through, or client coming to you through referrals or repeat business. And a lot of coaches starting out today want to get to that position because they know they care for their clients. They know they provide great results, but perhaps they're still stuck in that phase of, trying to break through the noise on LinkedIn, especially. It sounds like it's something that, you're still up against right now. Are there any actionable strategies or any key actions that you're taking that you're finding successful right now for breaking through the noise and, moving beyond referrals and repeat business that way?
Yeah, I wrote a book. This is a book that I wrote, not AI wrote it. I mean, you can write books today pretty quickly using AI, but I've written 4 books now, and so I use this as a marketing tool, and I buy copies of my own book and I mail them to people, and maybe I follow up with a direct message on LinkedIn, but I try to get their, hey David, I just sent you a copy of my book. Love you to check out this chapter based on some things I saw, that you're going through within your organization, and then let's set up a call, right? Trying to get a little bit more creative and just banging out messages and saying, hey David, I help people do this. Do you want to talk, right? I mean, you got to look for ways to differentiate yourself. I've been recording a podcast since 2019. My podcast is full of value, right? I don't sell, I don't run ads. I mean, I just get on here and talk about leadership. I interview leaders on my podcast we're trying to add value to the marketplace. And I use that as hey David, here's a podcast I recently recorded. It may be beneficial to you based on some things that you're going through now. So we're trying to add value in different ways through resources that we have versus just spam people with, hey David, I help people with their coaching, I help people with their retention, do you want to talk? Mm-hmm. So you got to look for ways to differentiate yourself. We also use some tools here that prove the ROI of our coaching and training engagements, and so we'll create reports out of that data to share, so we can say, we can back up what I say about behavior change and moving the needle. I can back that up with data versus hopes and prayers. A lot of trainers and coaches are, well, if you listen to me and I talk to you, hopefully you'll move the needle on some of the things. No, we want to move beyond hope and really share actionable data that proves what we teach and train and coach actually matters and moves the needle for you in your metrics.
I love that approach, Mike, especially with, trying to provide value first and foremost, right? Sending them a book, sending someone resources, saying, hey, I noticed you, I see what struggles you're having. Maybe this is going to help. Right? Not making an ask, but providing something, giving something first so that they can see and determine, hey, you know what, maybe there's value here. Maybe we should have a conversation. It's a great way to think outside the box and really break through that noise, really differentiate yourself. So, Mike, you're focused on a relationship first approach all across the board, and it's been extremely successful for you. You've also mentioned that, with AI out there, it's creating a lot of noise, a lot of confusion, a lot of spam, but you're using AI quite extensively yourself. So for a relationship first coach such as yourself, where does AI actually come in to enhance and add to the value rather than subtracting from it?
Look, we're new. I guess everybody's new to the AI game. I'm still trying to figure out how to use it right. We use it to help us craft messaging. We, dial it in a little bit more laser focused. What I love about AI is I can put some ideas in there to help me think a little bit better. I use AI as a thinking partner. Matter of fact, I use LinkedIn Sales Navigator as a tool, and I just used, I AI to help be a sales coach for me. Like, how do I use Sales Navigator maybe in ways that I haven't thought of already, right? To help me go deeper, to connect with people a little bit more. That's a great way to use it from an entrepreneurial standpoint. But, we'll use it to help me sometimes name my podcast, right? Here's things I want to talk about. Help me create some topics or titles that will make people maybe stop and listen to it. Things of that nature, instead of just, because again, man, I've been recording a podcast since 2019. You run out of ideas, right? I've got all this stuff to talk about, but I run out of topic or title ideas at times. And so I need help. That's where AI has really helped me. It's also helped me, create outlines for my training programs. I mean, when we devise a program for a company, usually they're hiring us for a year at a time. And so, I'll sit and use AI as a thinking partner with me and give it all these things I need to teach, all these leadership competencies I need to teach, and it'll help me create that outline much faster. And then I just got to plug pieces in there from my experience into the training classes and those types of things. So there's a million ways you can use AI I don't necessarily use it to help me get business yet, but I use it to help me think about my business in a different way and create some messaging that may be more appealing than I could do on my own. Those are the big ways that we're using it. And of course, like I said, I use some data and tools, and so I'll put some of that into some AI to pull data from me much more quickly versus me having to sit and look at 50 different reports to pull data. I can use AI to kind of extract that data out for me to help me create messaging back to my clients, for some of the things we're working on with them. So it's, man, I'm still learning how to use it. I'm a rookie. I'd say I'm a rookie, but I probably am ahead of the curve in some regards just because I'm using AI every day in some respect. And sometimes it's just, okay, I need a thinking partner here. Here's something I'm working on. Here's where I'm stuck. Can you help me kind of get through this and summarize my ideas in a better way to push me out of my box, so to speak.
Mike, you may be a rookie using it, but you're using it in the right way. And this is a really important lesson for the audience. There's so much AI generated content out there. And for those of you who don't have too many deep insights on how AI works, it uses the information it has available to it. Right? So the more AI generated content there is available, the more AI will learn from itself. It's almost like a snake eating its own tail, right? You're in a circular problem here. AI is not a be all and end all. You can't just say, hey, give me everything I need and expect to get something quality in return, right? You need to use your own creativity, your own insights, and your own experiences to prompt it in a way that it will help you think further and enhance it, not provide all of the material for you. Yeah. Otherwise, it's all, and I think people are starting to see this now, it all looks, sounds, and feels the same. So Mike, you're definitely using it in the right way. It's just using it as a thought partner, using it to help you refine, not to necessarily create everything, right?
Yeah.
Mike, from your perspective as a coach focused on behavior change, how do you see AI impacting, the delegation and control dynamics within organizations?
Yeah, I haven't done enough real research in that direction. What I do recommend, though, David, and I do this every day, as a coach, you can't be afraid of AI. And I recommend AI to my coaching clients every single day. I just did that with a chief nurse yesterday. I was coaching, and she's trying to interview and hire the role she's trying to fill is critical in getting the right person. And so I recommended a book to her called Grit because she needs to hire somebody in this role that is very, very gritty. And then of course I've helped the organization develop their values. So I recommended go to AI and drop the company values in there. And then ask AI to create an interview agenda, some interview questions that incorporate the company values with the ideas from Grit so that she can create interview questions that help her identify whether these candidates she interviewed have the grit they need to get through some of the challenges they have in this role. Because she can't hire someone who's soft. They won't survive. They'll be gone in 90 days because they've got a really tough situation. And so I think as a coach, we got to learn to use AI to help our clients think better and delegate some of that thinking out. Because here's what I know, man. I've interviewed, David, as I said, I was a headhunter. I've literally interviewed between 10 and 20,000 people. I can help create interviews. I can come up with thousands of matter of fact, I have a tool that I often give my clients with thousands of questions, interview questions. But they don't want to sit and read all those. They want to get those quick. So I just delegated that to her to use AI to delegate the creation of that agenda. It took her, maybe 10 minutes to do versus 2 or 3 hours calling through thousands of interview questions to find the right one, right? That's one way to delegate some things that you're trying to do, but then also pull from expert. Like ask it to incorporate the book Grit to help you find a gritty person, right? And look, I can't quote Grit. I know the book. I got lots of ideas, but I can pull that in and help you. And she shared the questions with me at Creative. Man, they were fantastic. Now she's got an interview agenda with questions that are going to help her laser in on that candidate and find the right type of person for a role. So that's one way that I use AI with my coaching clients as well, and not have this ego that, wow, I'm supposed to come up with all the ideas for. I could have done that, but it would have taken me hours to do without AI, right? Where it took her 10 minutes to do.
Excellent use case for AI right there. Mike, your insights into driving behavior change and the power of mentorship are truly inspiring. To conclude, based on your philosophy of investing in personal growth and focusing on the behaviors that change results, what's the single most important piece of advice you'd offer to our audience who are striving to achieve sustainable growth and transform their own business?
Pay for coaching. Join a mentorship, a mastermind group. Surround yourself with people that are ahead of you. I was just talking to my wife about this yesterday. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars. I say spent. I've invested tens of thousands of dollars, David, in myself, my own personal growth, books I've read. As I said, I didn't read my first book until I was 23. Now, I'd gone to high school and college, but I didn't read, man. I just did whatever it took to get by. But I've read hundreds, if not thousands, of books since I was 23 years old. Back when I started reading, there was no Audible, there was no internet, there was no YouTube, right? So you can learn from absolutely anywhere right now. But there's nothing. I spend about $4,000 a month right now on mastermind groups and entrepreneur groups and things that I'm a part of to help me think differently, get outside of my own limiting beliefs, to see things from a different perspective. And I think if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're a coach, if you're not getting some sort of coaching, mentoring, then you're not a coach. You're not a good coach, because you're limited to your own ideas if you're not listening to other people. And that may not always be great coaching advice that you're giving other people. I give coaching advice to people that I got from somewhere else a lot, right? It's not my own idea. It's an idea that I got from David or somebody else, right? That helped me just by being a part of mastermind groups and training. And so I just say invest in yourself as much as you're asking others to invest in themselves with you.
There's a saying that I really love, and that saying goes something like, knowledge is useless without execution, right? And you can get all the knowledge you want from books and from resources, but it's a coach that will help you execute on that knowledge and the resources and be able to take you beyond that as well. So love that advice, Mike. Definitely invest in coaching and mentorship. The resources and the information alone on their own won't be enough. Mike, for any of our audience who are just intrigued by what it is that you do and our conversation and might like to reach out to continue the conversation or to learn more about what you're doing at Harbour Resources, what would be the best way to find you online? Yeah, you can website harbourresources.com. Harbour's Harbour, the old Irish English way, OUR. Resources, RESOURCES.com. Also, theleaduppodcast.com. Or lead up, not the lead up, leaduppodcast.com. You can find my podcast. Find me on LinkedIn, Mike Harbour, as well. And, those are kind of the three places you're going to be able to find me easiest. Thanks again for joining us on The Growth Shift. David, thanks, man. Great interview. Loved being here with you. Another powerful conversation on The Growth Shift. If you, like our guests, are ready to turn your expertise into a predictable, scalable growth engine, one that eliminates the grind of prospecting and enhances your high-value relationships, then it's time to connect with Valentix. We are not a marketing agency. We are your strategic growth partner, building intelligent systems that ensure your client acquisition is predictable, not dependent on chance. To see how our AI-powered frameworks can free up your time and fill your calendar with decision makers, visit valentix.io. Thank you for joining us on The Growth Shift. We'll see you next time.